So I thought, or we thought, that I'd kick things off today because I feel like I have an insight that is percolating, and or maybe it's an insight that I've had before, where I feel like now there's an opportunity to deepen into it more. And this cropped up the other day when you did something that was rather irritating as far as I was concerned.
What did I do?
So you were in a hurry. In fact, to be honest, and it will paint a picture which probably puts me in a bad light, but I will try and level the playing field on that front. But you had to take our youngest daughter to the ER, and you just made yourself a smoothie because you felt like you needed to eat something before you left. And as you were leaving, you said, "Would you mind clearing this up for me?" And so,
because I was going to the ER.
Because you were going to the ER, which I was happy to do. I had no problem with that whatsoever. But I will say that there was a lot of mess. Or not only was there a lot of mess on the counter, a lot of flotsam and jetsam from the smoothie that you made, vis-a-vis peel and discarded fruit and all the rest of it. And but added to which there was also all the washing up from the previous night and various other things in the kitchen that were needing to be put away, counters to be cleaned, etc. So I basically spent about an hour cleaning all the surfaces, cleaning up the washing up, unloading the dishwasher, loading the dishwasher, and then the one thing that I didn't do was I didn't rinse out the blender. So because it was like a really pretty manky looking goo glued onto the side of it. So I left it in the sink to soak. And so you came back, when you came back later, and we were finding ourselves in the vicinity of the kitchen sink for some reason, I don't know why, you said, "I asked you to do that." And all I could think of was like, are you kidding? I spent an hour cleaning this kitchen and all you're doing is homing in on the one thing that I didn't do. I would appreciate it. This is the narrative that's running through my mind. I would appreciate it if you would at least, compliment me on all that I have done and not immediately focusing on the criticism. So that started to effervesce inside of my head. And then what's interesting about that, there's an old narrative that is a story I have told myself when I'm in a low mood around you, that has grown exponentially over the years. It's kind of like...
Is it like the Wail song?
I was going to say it's like the Wail song. My understanding, and this could be completely wrong, but my understanding is that the Wail song grows every year. Every year the whales come back to wherever they migrate to. And I guess marine biologists over the years have surmised that they add one little more note or something in addition to their song each year. So it's kind of like, over the years, I've had this narrative running around you being irritating when I'm in a low mood. And I think that I've kind of like been adding on more things with each year. And so it's grown. So probably what started off as maybe one minor source of irritation is now like being packaged in this Encyclopedia Britannica of upset and judgment that I've accrued over the years. So what I'm basically saying is that there's been some very strong and powerful neural pathways that I get sucked into by default when I'm upset and I'm in a low mood. And I can go to some pretty dark places. Anyway, for whatever reason, I decided, well, I'm not going to say anything now, and it was time to walk the dog anyway. So I went off on my merry way to walk the dog.
Not so merry way.
Not so merry way to walk the dog. My most disconsolate way to walk the dog. And then I found myself on the side of the mountain, as you do, because we live on top of a mountain, or a community on top of a mountain. And then I was reminded of this experience that I had, I think it was last year, where I was driving across a bridge, and usually when I'm driving across a bridge, and we're talking about like a freeway going into this like giant bridge that's about to cross this huge gorge. Because of my fear of heights, usually in that situation, I'll get into a bit of a cold sweat and I panic. And I'm one of those people that wants to drive 10 miles per hour on the cold shoulder because it's so terrifying. Anyway, so as I approached the bridge, and it's one of those situations where you can't. It's
Did
not
you
like.
say the cold shoulder?
Did I say the cold shoulder? The hard shoulder. Anyway,
Sorry.
so and you can't do a U. It's not like you can do a U-turn because you're on a freeway. It's a freeway going into this like crazy bridge. Anyway, so knowing what I know and being, I don't know if I'm well versed in this understanding, but I've been exposed to this understanding for several years now. I had this experience where I said to myself, well, I could, if I wanted to, engage with that thinking, all that typical old thinking, that old stale thinking that's associated with my fear of heights, or I could actually maybe ignore it. And what would it be like to experiment with ignoring it? And what happened was I actually ignored that old thinking and I didn't have any kind of panic. I actually got over the bridge. Anyway, it's a very long-winded way.
This is a whale song.
This is a whale song.
You're having a whale.
I am having a whale. But when I was walking the dog on the side of the mountain, thinking of my experience with vertigo, I suddenly thought, well, yeah, that probably applies to anything. I can actually have the same experience now rather than engage with all the old stale thinking as far as you were concerned, the narrative that I created over the years. I can actually ignore that because I know ultimately, you're a wonderful person. I love being married to you. But all the crap in that narrative, which probably is diametrically opposed to all those sentiments, is just a waste of time. And ultimately, the only one that's really suffering in all that experience is me. So I just thought it was just really cool because I think because, we did a lot of work with couples, it's and people are always looking for a magic bullet, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute this is a magic bullet, but I'm just seeing how in the moment where I can get upset and go very outside in my mindset, then there is this muscle that feels very new that is starting to develop around seeing that I have a choice, and that feels pretty fresh. And I think that I think and would like to hope that will now develop over time in the same way that I seemingly have got over my fear of heights, just by the virtue of the fact that I don't have to engage in that thinking. I can also apply the same principle, if you like, to anything where I recognize that I'm going into some kind of judgment, suffering, wherever I see that indicator. Oh, that was a lot, wasn't it?
And what I think is important is that you were able to see it as thought.
Yes.
And when you can't see it as thought, you don't have a choice point.
Yeah.
So the more that you see that your experience is being created by thought, then the more choice there's going to be to not engage with it.
Yeah.
But when it's just you live with an evil witch of a wife and that's your reality,
Yeah.
there's no choice point.
Yeah.
And by the way, I thought you said you'd wash that up.
Well, I know, absolutely. The whole thing is completely ridiculous, and I went a little crazy, as we do. I think when we get sucked into that world, that virtual world. Yeah. I said actually the other day, or actually I said it this morning. It's kind of like it reminds me of that movie Tron.
I don't think I've seen it.
Oh, well, you have to see it because he kind of gets sucked into this virtual world and has to fight this sort of evil computer wizard. I don't think they use the term wizard. That's my language, but. It's almost like I get sucked into this illusionary world, and I'm just something that I'm just making up from a low mood.
And your way out is to see that it's illusion.
It is.
Yeah, and to look towards what's real.
Yeah, and that's the choice point that seems to be kind of new and fresh, and hopefully is a muscle that I'm developing.
Thank you for cleaning up the kitchen, by the way.
Thank you. About time.
You know what's so funny is I didn't even notice that that you did all that.
I know.
I mean, it wasn't like I was not acknowledging it. I didn't even see it.
I know. And it's interesting because I probably have the same experience with the kids who just like live in their own little world, walking around in cloud cuckoo land, and the last thing that crosses their mind is to wash up their dirty plates. But you know, why I don't need to take that personally. I just need to find a neutral place and to ask them to clean up their crap.
Well, I love your whale song analogy.
Yes. Next time we do a vlog, I'll just be going, ooh.
That's what I'm gonna do to you when you get into your moan.
Right.
The whale song.
That would be quite funny, maybe, depending on my mood.
That's right. Well, have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.